Hello, hello. We're waiting for Beau to log in. Hey everyone, just wait. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Let me add Beau. Hey, what's up?
Hello, Fair.
How's it going?
Very good. I'm just out doing we'll walk with the baby for the next half an hour or so.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
How old is your
So
baby?
she is 7 months in a few days' time.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so she's happy. She's got a little French rubber giraffe going down there, and it's a beautiful day here on the farm, so it's perfect to get out of the house.
Awesome. Is that your property? Where you're walking around?
Yeah, so on my right-hand shoulder, so there it is there. There's the little house. We're
Awesome.
just passing, and the little vineyard, and the overgrown grass that the Jersey cows will come into next week.
Oh, cool. And that's
Yeah,
that's in Jindivik, correct?
Jindivik, yeah, which is about an hour east of Melbourne.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, and it's really awesome to see that you're doing this while with your daughter. So,
yeah, no, but there she is. There she is. There's her little head. Yeah, it's great.
awesome. Oh, that's really great. Well, I just want to
I'm
say,
going on an
first on
uphill
behalf.
section at the moment, so there'll be a slight bit of there's the neighbours. Uh, I'm on a slight uphill at the moment, so I'll puff a little bit for the next couple of minutes, and then it's all downhill for the rest of our walk.
Okay, no problem. I won't ask any questions to take your breath away.
Excellent, very good. Morning, Andrew. Hello, mate.
So, all right. So, well, thank you for participating in this live session. The live session is called the Backyard Adventure because, through some of your films and your writings, we've heard that your book that's coming out later this year is called the Backyard Adventure. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, it is. I've been reluctant to release pre-sales because I thought the name was a bit boring, and I still think it's a bit ho-hum. So I wanted to come up with something a bit racier, but yeah, that's kind of the theme. And whether that's the byline or the front title, I'm not sure. But yeah, it comes out at the end of the year.
Awesome. Yeah, it's you haven't published too much information about it, so I just wanted to, get a sense of what it was about. What are you talking about a lot of your trips that you do and your films, or is it a different concept altogether?
No, that's exactly it. I use in a sense the last sort of 10 years worth of films or 8 years worth of films as chapters or themes. But in saying that they sit within larger themes. So the three key themes or chapter titles are eat, move, and make. And then I have kind of a finishing sequence called home. And I suppose the great privilege of someone who is wanting to go on backyard adventures now, it's all stemmed from 20 years worth of non-backyard adventures. I spent 10 years in the States as a guide and lots and lots of years traveling in between. So I'd use the US each year as kind of a beacon. And then on the way home or on the way to the US each year, I'd go to really exotic places, lots of Asia and lots of North America and lots of Europe. And so it's a bit unfair for me to say that I think backyard adventuring is the way to go in all ways because I've had this amazing life of worldly adventures. But yeah, backyard adventuring and the book that's where it's at the moment.
Well,
Yeah.
what is because I looked up the word adventure just to just to get a bit of context on it, and it basically means
It goes a truck.
it has to do with chance. And I think it's interesting because, you know, when you are having these exotic trips that you talk about in the States or wherever, it's stuff that's new to you, and there is a lot of chance in that. You know, a lot of times you might not know what to expect, and when you say the backyard adventure, it sounds like something you're a lot more familiar with. So maybe, do you think you have to work a little harder to create some chance happenings in your backyard?
That's a good definition, or a good critique of adventure. I did my PhD on the very concept of adventure and trying to challenge that in many respects. And, you know, a chance didn't come up a lot, I must admit, in my critique of it. And I've been teaching it for 20 years, adventure education. And for the most part, competence versus risk is, you know, they're your X and Y axes for what adventure is and how you perceive it. Or at least that's what a lot of scholars talk about. So I think you're right in that chance is certainly part of that. Chance is probably a far more subjective term in a sense as well. Competence can be quite easily ranked. And in a sense, a matrix of risk can be as well. And so they're a bit more objective to map the subjective experience. So when I go out on my back, and I'm doing it now, I'm now walking the path or the lap of my block that is on a mile an hour.
Yeah.
I still see something different every time. And so I'm still chancing upon things I haven't observed before. And so then it becomes an art form of discipline, in that I've got to look out for those things I've never seen before.
Yeah.
All right, we're on the downhill stage now, so we can not puff as much. There we go.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really good question, in that ultimately, you know, I'm really attracted to this idea that everywhere is exotic and everywhere is boring. And so you've got to put yourself somewhere on the scale of how you see it.
I think it's interesting because I think, well, you obviously know more about this than I do because you wrote the PhD on it, but I think adventure is a lot about kind of creating a game to play, you know, with yourself or against yourself. Maybe it's something that, in a lot of your videos, for example, you're playing like this game with yourself to see how much your body can take or to see how much you can discover. You know, it's like setting up these small games to kind of play within that adventure. Like, do you ever see it as play, or is it just always like a
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to come back to play. In fact, the whole backyard adventuring thing is that I took myself pretty seriously, and not really meaning to. You know, I saw adventure as hard and highly skilled and long range, you know, and a lot of that wasn't very fun. Africa wasn't fun for the most part. It was really difficult, and I had to kind of just keep on keeping on. And I'd have moments within that were spectacular, but they were few and far between compared to the mundane and the grind. And so, I think that I have to, this whole concept of play is very much hinged on having fun again. Because when a kid goes and climbs a tree when they're 10, ultimately it's really fun. And yes, there's that sense of, I might fall, or what am I going to see when I get to the top or halfway? And I really like that. And I remember that as a kid in a kind of abstract adult form. So I just want to kind of repeat that.
Do you see that at all with you said your daughter's 7 months old?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Do you see any kind of playing like that kind of spirit? Oh.
Yeah, I do. I mean, she's so volatile with her life world. You know, even coming out the door this morning, I gave her her little rubber giraffe, which is a really fun toy for her. And in my other hand, I had an egg crate that we use for gardening. You know, we put seedlings in. So it was a used egg crate, and she instantly just went for the egg crate because it was new and interesting. And it's just an egg crate, of course. Yeah. So watching her and what interests her is very cool, in that she makes something out of everything. And it's that classic thing, you know, kids are more interested in the cardboard box that their toys come in at Christmas, you know, which is essentially where we live. You know, where we live is a cardboard box. And we're always after the shiny thing sometimes, and we don't realize just how cool the cardboard box is.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think for a kid, you know, it's really fun. All that stuff is really fun because of the size difference. You know, kids fit in a cardboard box, and kids can fit underneath a sofa, or and
Yeah.
in all these interesting places. And I think when we get old, as we grow and our bodies don't fit in these things anymore, like maybe that's why, I don't know, some people like to go out to nature to fit in different things, like under trees and in small paths, or
That's
I
a
don't
great
know.
observation. And the tiny house movement and whatnot, you know, I live in a relatively tiny house, and I've just made an outdoor office for Helen as a surprise. She found out about it. She came and stumbled upon it before I put the roof on. But it's small, but the view is very big, and the idea of it is you can do great things from small places, and kids know that with cubbies, and you know,
Yeah.
just their regular. They look at the intricate as well. We tend
Yeah.
to forget it.
Yeah, and I think you know, referring to a lot of your videos, you know, they're often very philosophical, and very, you know, some of them like run the line where you explore the old train track by where you live, and mile an hour where you just run around your block. It's an interesting way to learn about history of your place, you know, like and I'm wondering how, you know, if you know, I'm sure you did it running because running is what you know, it's something you know. But have you ever thought that maybe running is the only way to do that, or maybe just one of the best ways to do it, but it's not just because something you know?
No, I think what's taking place there is that I had a little bit of to give you a backstory on my relationship to running. I've run my entire adult life, and that trickled in from adolescence when I used running to get away. And not as you know, I had a great childhood, but you know, when you're 14 and 15 and you're growing that sort of independent streak, and you're starting to develop some ideas of your own, I used running to get off the farm and to just explore a neighbourhood I knew okay, but not very well, not on my own terms. And so running gave me my own terms as a 14, 15-year-old, and I found that I liked it and I was okay at it. And so away I went. I became a jogger, runner, or whatever, you know. And so fast forward 20 years, and or let's say 15 years, and I was in the middle of a bad breakup with a wonderful woman, still is a wonderful woman, and so her and I have gone our separate ways, and I'm on my little farm that I've bought, and I'm living as simply as I've ever lived. You know, I live with no stove, no toilet. I had electricity, but everything was very simple. You know, I'd turn on one light bulb a night, and it was very basic, and I loved it. I loved that kind of getting back to simplicity, and you know, I didn't have a shower. I'd just go and wash in the river once a week. Now, I don't mean to have that kind of Zen moment because of the simplicity, but when I was out weeding one night, and I bought a 5-acre block, 4 acres of which was paddock, and the paddock was full of weeds. And so I just hand weeded with a mattock and a hoe. And I was out there that night, and I didn't run for that 6 months when I was really grieving the relationship. And I thought, I haven't run and I haven't missed it because I've been physical doing all this other stuff. And so the moral of this little story is that I finally figured out that running was a waste of energy, because I could use my running energy onto things that were more meaningful, like weeding the paddock and getting rid of noxious weeds. And so now running to me must have something else other than just going somewhere and being fit and strong. It kind of has to have a sense of history to it, or a sense of meaning, or Helen comes along, or May comes along, or I do it with a friend. And yes, I still run in the evenings now to be indulgent, but I don't run as far, and my longer runs now are generally somewhere new or somewhere that I want to explore because it's got something else to it. You know, it's not just about logging kilometers anymore, and I hope it never is. So it's about something else.
Is that something you maybe saw? Because you're a doctorate of philosophy, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Does philosophy say anything about that? Maybe that kind of pointlessness to some things, or maybe having a deeper meaning to things, or just doing things for the sake of doing them?
Yeah, philosophy. I mean, the definition of philosophy, and I found this out pretty late in the game. You know, you're constantly after upheavals, as someone who thinks quite deeply, and I suppose I've developed into that. But the definition of philosophy is to define or to articulate what we already know. And so I'll just wait for these tractors to go past in the country. Hey guys, howdy. That's rural Australia for you. It's as loud as my life gets.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's the philosophy thing, mate. Is I'm trying to untap what me and my body knows. You know, my grandmother, who's one of the wisest women I know, she barely went to school. You know, she just did it in dribs and drabs when she was a young child, and yet she's so in tune with the world and stuff. She's incredible. You know, she's so wise, and yet she wouldn't be as contemplative philosophically as me whatsoever, because she kind of knows what she knows, and it's very cool to see. You know, that sort of wisdom.
So do you think it's harder now for you to just, I mean, you just said it's pointless because it's a waste of energy, but do you think it's worth it to try and for you, Beau, to take a run and not have any point to it, or is that just long gone?
No, that's a really good point too. And that's the art of Zen, I suppose. That's to be, you know, that's the contradiction, that mindfulness is to be mindless. Yeah. You know, it's sort of, I think about those kind of things, and I can't ever turn my brain off now, and I don't really want to. I'm really interested in thinking about things. And you're dead right. I don't say running is useless. Running is my life. Running is like breathing. I love it. I will run. You know, there was a stage there. I did 10 years of running pretty much every day. Then I might have missed 10 days, 20. I don't know, but I ran, and it was. And I still kind of do now. I'm probably only a 3 times a weeker, but it has great meaning for me. So I don't mean to belittle it, because it means so many things to so many people. But yeah,
no, that's interesting. But so in your book, you know, whether it's called The Backyard Adventure or not, is running an ingredient of it? You know, is it something, or is some athletic thing part of it, or is it just purely about just challenging yourself and discovery?
No, it's very much a part of those themes. So within each of those 3 main themes, I have an introduction that sort of explains where I'm at and where I've come from, and my flaws as a human and flaws of society that I've picked up along the way, and how that I'm, you know, I find it hard sometimes to grizzle at the world because I'm part of that problem. You know, I'm pushing around a petrochemical pram at the moment that I didn't build out of colours that are unnatural and all this sorts of stuff, and that's perfectly okay, you know, but there's some problems in there too. Yeah. So I know I'm part of this big problem, so I try and explain that in a fun kind of way, and then I go into my themes, and the themes are very much littered with running, being that it is such a part of my life. So yeah, it's heavy. I think your people out there of your network would dig it, I think.
Cool. Well, I think I forgot to mention that people could submit their questions with a little question mark box on the bottom, but I have some questions from people.
Great.
So I guess the first thing somebody's asking is, we clearly see that running has been fuel for your creative process. Could you tell us more about how you discovered this creative potential in something that is sometimes seen by many as mere exercise? Which I think you kind of talked about a little bit.
Yeah. Look, I think Rebecca Solnit, she wrote a beautiful book called Wanderlust about walking. And in many respects, I take some of her quotes and put them into the running world. It's, you know, she says that the mind and the feet work at the same pace. And I think it kind of does. You know, I don't need to tell a runner they will probably solve most of their problems, and they come back a better person after a run because they've thought about something they've done it on their own terms, at their own pace, via their own metronome. And so I think, you know, I wrote my PhD in my head whilst running, absolutely, and came up, and there's some tricky problems with a PhD, as with people's lives, right? So off we go, and we we do our couple of miles or our 10Ks or our whatever, and we fix things. So, and fixing's not an absolute, but in part of fixing, we become quite creative to how we get around these problems. And so I think it's a wonderful creative tool, and like any physical outlet, it jogs the mind. It keeps us engaged, I think. And a mile an hour was definitely that. I'd come back and I'd thought about what to do next, or how to do that join, or where the screw was that I would use for the next, piece of door or table or whatever it was.
Oh, awesome. So another question is, what can you tell people that could motivate them to go explore their own backyard?
Yeah, so I'm doing it now. I'm out with May. In saying that, I've paid very little attention to my world whilst talking to you. My attention is to your words and to, where you are in the world. You're in such a different place to me. You're emerging into summer, and we're emerging into winter. But look, what is around me right now? I live in a beautiful place. I could give you, well, my camera won't really do it, but I live in a magnificent part of the world, and yet it's been completely clear-felled, most of it. It's farmland.
Okay.
So as I go for a walk here, I'm looking for things that I'm looking for the history of the land. I'm looking for my part within it. And the further I go, if I go for a 25K run, I'm looking around more, so it's really just a scale thing in many respects as well. You can do an awful lot in your local area, and if you take out a couple of different lenses with you, or a couple of different sets of glasses to view it, it's not just about me and my body anymore, it's about where I'm doing it. Yeah. So that's the backyard, that's the zest of it.
Oh, somebody just sent in a question that kind of jumps on that, and it's how are you staying motivated for running during quarantine, which I can imagine is not that much of a problem because of where you are.
Yeah, I'm really lucky I live in such a magic part of the world. I'd be happily for lockdown for the next 5 years. Golly, we've been able to make films. We essentially made the Bean Project online. So, that's remarkable, and that pushed us into a corner of doing that, where my production partner was essentially sitting next to me, even though he's in the city. And so, I've been running enough, and it's getting out. It's great.
Do you think that, I'm sure maybe you haven't noticed, or maybe you have, just how you've changed or what you learned by living in the kind of scenery you live in. But do you think that people around the world right now, with this kind of pause that's going on, do you think they're going to get any of that, of what you've gotten over the years? Or do you think it's a lot harder, or more, you need more time to get it?
I think what you're asking for is that is this huge sort of global event? It's an event in everyone's lives. It's reshaped for the most part how a lot of us go about our day to day over the last few months. Is it going to transfer into this new norm on the other side of this, if there is such a thing? I've witnessed this my whole life, or adult life, as an outdoor educator, where you go away for 5 or 8 or 10 days and you live a very different life to what you have before and what you will afterwards. So how much, and it's been talked about a lot, how much of that experience in a different setting transfers into the new? Unfortunately, I have seen, for the most part, it only makes small changes to people, and in some respects, in the long run, none at all. So my faith in humanity to see how, if we become better after this or different, I think we will go back to gluttony and well, no, I don't know.
Do you think it's a time thing, or do you think it's just in our nature that we just, people in cities just won't change? Or do you think it just, if this quarantine lasted like one more year, that people would change?
Maybe, and I hope so. Look, I don't mean to be a grizzle guts, because that last answer was, I still don't have unwavering faith in humanity, but there's just so many of us too. So maybe most of us are wonderful, but there's still always going to be a minority that are dirtbags for some reason or another. They might just have a shitty life, so they end up being dirtbags. Now, if there's more dirtbags around, it tends to bring a lot of us down too, you know. So let's get out of the way of this milk truck. I don't know. I'm really interested to see what happens in the next 6 months in terms of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to get to 3 more questions that people left here, and
Sure.
one of them is, how does knowing you are creating a story while adventuring affect your decision-making process while living the adventure?
Yeah, good question, and I get that a lot. Essentially, does me taking a camera with me or having a film crew with me, whether they're really in my face or really shooting me in a sort of guerrilla way, how does it affect what I do in my decision-making? A lot. It does a lot. But that doesn't mean it's bad. So a lot of people say, does it detract from the experience? No, it just makes it a different kind of experience, because there's plenty of times I don't have a camera with me. Don't worry about that. And in many respects, when I don't have a camera with me, I'm thinking about how this may have been a film or could have been a film, but not all the time. And so, look, everyone tells their story, right? So, you know, I look at Strava now, and when people have a pink line following them around via some sort of GPS signal, I've never done that. And that's a story. People are telling a story by how far they go and how long it takes them and where they went.
Yeah.
I make a film about it, and I instantly become more maybe egotistical about what I'm doing. But in many respects, we all have a story, and whether it's a pink line following us with a GPS signal or what you tell over breakfast. Yeah, that was pretty close. So it definitely does dictate.
So somebody else asked, how did you manage to fund your beginning adventures, and how did you take that first step?
Well, look, to be honest, there's no difference between how I fund current adventures and how I budgeted or how I paid for past adventures. They're all very much cheap bootleg adventures. Some of it was part of work, but for the most part, it was. My films cost very little, but I've got good partnerships now too. You know, I have a real key ally in Mitch Drummond, who I make films with, and him and I do it out of the goodness of our heart in our spare time, you know. We've just put in an application for a film grant, and it was laborious, and I'm not sure if we'll get it, and it was a pain in the ass. I'd rather probably just go away and work hard and earn my money and earn that time off, or earn money to buy a camera. But for the most part, I'm lucky that I can earn money and use, or have been in the past. Filmmaking's always been kind of a side gig or a part-time gig, but now is the big question. Can I sustain this now that I'm no longer at a university? How long can I keep going on as a mongrel creative?
Yeah, and that's its own kind of adventure in a sense.
Yeah, and I'm figuring that out, and I'm lucky. I'm on daddy daycare at the moment because my wife's off earning money, and that's just fine with me at the moment, you know.
I think you know, one of the last questions we'll ask has to do with that, with outdoor education, because up until recently you were I think a professor at Monash, right? Monash University.
Yeah, I'm not a prof. That's a role in Australia. It's very different. But yes, I was headed up a small outdoor education team at Australia's biggest university, and I loved it. It was a brilliant job. Yeah. But unceremoniously, it got cut.
Anyway. What do you think about? Well, the question is, if you have any advice for somebody wanting to study outdoor education, and I guess I'd be interested to know what you think the value of having an outdoor education program or teaching it is.
That is $1 million question. We got cut because some people in education still think it's an extracurricular activity that is not warranted in a regular day-to-day education system. I debunk that in many ways, but of course we would. You know, I'm preaching to the choir there when I say that outdoor ed is a wonderful existence and needed for our education. But then there's lots as well. In Australia, outdoor education is seen as an extracurricular within an education system. For some other parts of the world, it's seen as something else in many parts of the world. So it depends where you want to study it. But I see it as incredibly valuable And it depends whether you want to do it to get a job at the end, or you want to do it because you love it and you'll make it work with a job at the end, you know. So
what do you think has to happen for people to start taking that seriously? You know, you said maybe in Australia they don't take it as seriously as in other parts of the country, but do you think it's something individuals have to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I was lucky in that I've never done anything to earn money, but because of that, I've earned money along the way. And I've always said that with a good work ethic, and if you're willing to do something that's 5% out of your wheelhouse, whatever that might be, earning money is bloody easy. It's if you've got a good work ethic and you're willing to do things. And I've always seen my jobs in some way, shape or form as outdoor ed, because most of them are outdoors, you know, building things or landscaping or guiding or gardening, whatever. So I think it's a wonderful job market with huge potential because it makes you a well-rounded human, which a lot of other degrees do not. And so it's worth its weight in gold just for that alone.
Yeah. So I'll ask one more question because we got a bunch of the same kind of question, and that's related to your own philosophy. Like, do you see yourself as a Stoic, or maybe do you even subscribe to any philosophy after all your studies?
I'm not sure what a Stoic is. I know what the word Stoic means, and if it is that, I think I'm Stoic. I have a lot of drawbacks to my life, you know, or my personality, I suppose, but in many respects, like any good interview, you would say that they are positives as well. You know, I'm quite good at just getting on with things, and so yeah, that's my key thing. I don't mind adversity, and I really love using my body within that adversity, you know, just to do things and to sweat and to cut your hands, because why not? You know, you're going to be okay. And I'd rather have a toothache in life and experience it and feel it than not. And so I kind of put that across most things.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. You know, thank you very much, Beau, for giving us this time. I'm sure, you know, there's a ton more questions, but we'll keep it at 30 minutes. And what's your daughter's name again?
This is May.
Hey,
I
May.
just scared her. There you go, love. There you go.
Just wanted to say hi to May, and thank you, May, for listening to this conversation.
Yeah, she's very good. She's just having a bit of a snot away there, and this is her best mate, Sophie. Oh, don't go down the hill, Dale. So this is her little Sophie. Yeah, there you go, love. Yeah, she's amazing. Best thing we've ever done.
Awesome.
So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Beau. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Good on you. See you, mate.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, everybody. Ending the live session right now. Thank you, guys. And now.